One, and we are live with Michael Lorberbaum. Michael, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. It is wonderful to connect with you. I
So, Michael, you are an expert in AI. You work with companies to help them understand the technology and the technologies that are out
yeah,
there related to AI, but you also help with actual practical use cases. How do companies use the tools? Do I have that right?
that's exactly right. And helping companies think about how to really get value from a lot of these generative AI things that are all over the news. And so people want help understanding what's hype, what's real, and can I really get an ROI from something as simple as ChatGPT?
Yeah, so let's start with that because I do
Yeah.
have people around me that talk about ChatGPT and they talk about RAG and they talk about some of the other tools. So, what are the primary tools that are being used in business that companies are trying to leverage to make their companies better, whatever better is?
Great question. So the primary tools these days are really OpenAI's ChatGPT and Anthropic's Claude. And as a consumer, any of us can really buy our own subscription to any of those and get familiar with it. They're $20 a month. You mentioned RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation, and that's nothing more complicated than loading some content into the system so that it can use it as additional context to help respond to you. And so if you are a author and you want an AI to speak the way you do or to write the way you do, you can load up your content and it will write in your style. Or maybe as a company, you have a bunch of technical content that your customer service agents use. You can load that up, and then that AI tool can respond in real time with technical support for either aiding their existing support agents or giving advice directly to customers.
And so that's part of the RAG. That would be under the RAG or the Anthropic or the
That's
yeah.
under the rack. So let me give you a little bit of an example. And when I think about real use cases, I think about it in three flavors. So you can get a lot of this off the shelf. You can go to Anthropic's website, you can go to OpenAI and just buy a subscription and get answers. The next level of sophistication under data integration is using things like RAG, where you're giving it context based on your own information. It's a little bit harder to get started from an enterprise approach. But you can definitely do it. They've actually gotten a lot better quality responses using things like RAG. And then some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies and others are building their own custom models. And that's an even higher level of complexity and sophistication. But what's cool is even in the early phases of off the shelf tools, you can get value in almost every business function. So whether a marketer is trying to improve their own content or someone in IT is trying to get help debugging a program, it's all possible with some of these off the shelf solutions.
What I see data next to it, and that's something that at Logisolve, my company, we are seeing a lot of activity in our data group, and we have a lot of companies that say, "Hey, the I met with the board, and they want to know what we're doing with AI," and I'm still, in the meetings I have talking about how do we get our data clean enough that we get information that's useful to our executives. And so, how big a lift is it for people? Are people ready for AI, or how, in your mind, is it concurrent, or do people need to get their data straight at some basic level before AI can be meaningful to them?
I generally recommend testing because what makes generative AI so much more powerful than the types of AI we had before is it can handle messiness. It can handle unstructured data. So I would recommend loading the data as you have it and trying to evaluate if you get quality output back. If you get into some of those more sophisticated use cases in that middle, you can actually put workflow steps in that clean up some of the messiness that exists. So, as an example, if you load up all prior customer support interactions, it may have a conversation about, a customer's pet in there. You can take various steps to remove that type of conversation so it never gets surfaced back as a part of an answer. And so there's different things that you can do to start to automate some of this data cleaning with generative AI tools.
When it comes to groups like finance, for example, and there's multiple databases and data warehouses, data lakes that have been created over the years, and at this point there's this, in theory, the same piece of data in 10 different systems, but that piece of data is actually not the same value in all 10 databases. And so there's discussions around which system is the system of record. And you might have executives that have their own pet data lake that they think is the right one. Does AI help in that data cleansing, or can it referee which database is the actual data source of record or not? Or is it still the humans having to fight it out in a boardroom?
It's still the humans fighting it out in a boardroom. I
Uh,
recommend that you tell the system which of these sources is your source of truth. Which of these things should be the primary source for a given data element? Yes, this messiness certainly exists. It exists across many enterprises. But to help improve the accuracy of what you get out, you want to be able to tell the program, or think of it like a junior employee or intern. You want to be able to tell this person or AI which of these they should rely on with the greatest degree of confidence.
Okay. Yeah. And we have a process, and we're going through that, where we take people through determining and agreeing on, it's the whole alignment process
That's
prior
right.
to getting to this technology phase. So that all makes sense. So assuming the company gets to that point, they've decided, okay, here's the data of record that we are going to go with. I see marketing groups right now using this technology to create content, work some customer service, and those kind of things. Are there other areas where you say AI can come in and make a difference? Specifically like a finance group, or in manufacturing, like the heart of some of these businesses. Where does AI fit in?
100%. And so what I've seen is almost every business function has complicated work that could be automated, or things that are data intensive, computationally burdensome, and you can use AI to help across the board. So I think you mentioned manufacturing as an example. You could, as a simple case, load up all of the maintenance manuals onto a tool, so people have access to all the technical details in the field wherever they need. There are people who are now doing things with supply chain where they're automating different communication steps, so you don't need a human to close the loop between systems. And then the more sophisticated companies are improving their own demand forecasting tools to influence their own ordering. So you can kind of feel the progression of sophistication. But even in those early phases, lots and lots of companies are getting value. One estimate I saw earlier this week is if someone is really using AI to automate their work, they could likely gain something on the order of 10 to 20% more bandwidth because they're removing some of the admin work from their day to day. And that would be a typical business professional. So obviously for some functions, it may be more, some jobs, it may be less, but 10 to 20% is a good going in assumption as you're starting experiments.
How does a company, if they want to address, they know they have an admin, that issue. They know that their people are doing too much work that's not critical to what they consider to be the heart of the business, revenue generation, customer service, whatever it is. Where does a company start? Is it assessing? Is it just bringing a tool, buying a tool and bringing it in? Where do you suggest people start?
Love the question. And it fed me almost immediately to this. And that is, I think of two different exploration exercises. And you can use a workflow like this to get some of the people doing the job to brainstorm possible ways these tools could be used. And so you can start with a problem-centric approach. I have a problem, I really want to solve it. And you go through brainstorming solutions, evaluating how much value it creates, the feasibility, the cost, and then running some experiments. Or something that starts with capabilities and doing something very similar. What is really fun is you start with these 6 very common AI capabilities. And when you start there, ideation really starts getting into some fun areas and spaces. So we've all likely seen ChatGPT generate images and respond to questions. That's what people have expected. But now, I think within the last month or so, we're starting to see some real advances in audio, whether it's conversational AI with ChatGPT, where you can have what feels like a real-time conversation, or what came out from Google of Notebook LM. You can load a bunch of data and get a recording, an engaging conversation of a couple people talking about whatever you loaded. So imagine you get a whole pile of reports at the end of a month that, takes a long time to sort through. You could load that into something called Notebook LM, and it will make a podcast for you of 2 people conversationally talking about the highlights, key insights from that data set. But I use this. This is one of the more powerful tools for people to brainstorm ways that the capabilities of generative AI can add value to their business. And just coming up with both simple and complex applications for these various capabilities.
Very cool. And for those of you who are listening to the audio version of this podcast, we have some slides up, and it's Michael has potential applications, simple, complex, and you go through an exercise of sitting in a room and talking through details and figuring out then how do we plug AI into to help with whatever the problem is.
100%. And so for the listeners, I would just highlight some of the real fun capabilities that have come out involve creating content. And when you think of content, it's everything from text to video, but also code. You can enhance that same content into as many languages as you could imagine. So think about instant translation of your customer videos, whether it be marketing or self-help, translated into someone's native language. You can summarize key insights, review large historical contexts of data. You can do so with technical or non-technical information, but also create connections and insights across very disparate data sets. So if you loaded, as an example, all of the historical marketing summaries from the past 12 months and asked it, where are there substantial variances that we should explore as opportunities, it can do that and do so very quickly, more efficiently than a human could.
Just based on what you're saying, I'm traveling in the next 6 months to a number of different countries. And what you're telling me sparks a lot of curiosity around if I could use hearing aids that AI it probably won't be in 6 months, but I bet in 2 years, AI will be able to translate Japanese for me as they're speaking to me real time or close to real time. And I can probably respond. We're probably not too far away from
We're
that,
not
which is
too
pretty
far. I
cool.
would say in 6 months, you might get close. So if you're a Google user, Google has an audio translate already that is not quite real time, but you can listen in a foreign language and it will translate.
That's awesome. Michael Lorberbaum, thank you so much for your time. This has been fascinating. For everyone else out there, thanks for listening, and you are watching the vodcast.
Thanks, Kelly.